I guess this whole India experience about just inspiring me to live a higher conscious life and to give back and to share these blessings that God has given me. The purpose of the trip was to go celebrate my teacher and guru's 100th centenary celebration. He was from India, and he was born in May 1907. So I guess a little bit of a pilgrimage, and I was lucky enough to travel with a couple teachers, one Ganesh from Seattle and Don from New York. Well, at the first of the trip, kind of going chronologically, going to India, the first time I went to Asia, that it was awful overwhelming. I was very uncomfortable after arriving, and I told people it's for 4 reasons mainly. The first thing was the chaos of the traffic, which is a constant state of playing chicken. So they say that there might be a lady walking with a sack of rice on her head to a motorized rickshaw or a pedal rickshaw, or a couple oxen pulling a wagon with some rice stacked up with a couple guys on it, to cabs coming at you, or maybe a tourist bus. So, as I said, that there might be a car, they drive on the opposite side of the road, so if you're going this way and the car's coming the other way, there might be somebody walking very slowly, or an oxen or something, and of course all the cows. The cows are all over. So the reality is somebody coming at you might have to get in your lane while you're getting into their lane, and then it's total offensive driving. Everybody counts on the fact you're going to jump back into your lane, so it's pretty bizarre. It's actually frightening. It's crazy. So that, and then I was uncomfortable, the poverty, dirty, and then not knowing the language. So I felt like a fish out of water for the first few days. So it was major culture shock is what it was. The second thing I kind of experienced with the trip was the total opposite. Second day, we were downtown this city where Baba spent 40 or 50 years of his life, called Puri, P-U-R-I. It's on the Bay of Bengal. So if you imagine India, it's on the east side, kind of the central coast of Bay of Bengal. And of course, it's 110 degrees, but I was there after a couple days, and so we were in the square in the city of Puri, where there's lots of temples and ashrams, and there's a huge temple called Jagannath Temple. Jagannath means universal God, and this temple's must be 2 to 3 square blocks, maybe 2 or 3 blocks long, 2 or 3 blocks wide, huge. Feeds about 5,000 to 10,000 people a day, part of their mission, and 5,000 to 10,000 people a day go there on pilgrimage. Well, so there's a huge square there. We went and saw Baba's ashram, the Karara ashram. We came back, I was with Dawn and a couple ladies from California. So just let me off in the cab downtown in this square. And from there, I had quite the opposite experience, total connection. I got hustled by this little guy named Rabir, who was kind of an amateur tour guide, hustler. And you stick out like a sore thumb if you're American and you're white in this area, because it's not a tourist place, it's an Indian pilgrimage place. So he seeked me out, and I went up to this library to look into the Jagannath Temple, and so then I came out, I met him again, and so he kind of started interpreting for me, and I bought a few items and spent the afternoon with him that afternoon. And through that process, I have my video camera and my camera, and asking people permission to take pictures and from vendors to different people, and the square is pretty amazing. Huge wide street, and it's got on the first level, I mean, again, the rickshaws and cows and everybody's cruising, so it's very chaotic. But then on the side of the street is vendors that are on the ground. They might be selling trinkets to fruit, to maybe a cart with banana, to then there's buildings behind it, plywood, just 8 by 8 structures or 10 by 10 structures that might be selling something else, and then beyond that is the facade of the street. From kids being kids, very happy. So what I found after letting my guard down and getting beyond the culture shock, I found the experience being very inspiring. That people in that situation of poverty and dirty, and the sewer is running down the side of the street in many places. You get stenches of smells. One time I was cruising along, there's a dead dog right on the road. Nobody bothers to stop and pick it up. And at the same time, it was right outside of an ashram and a temple. So the experience of connecting with the people was grand. They're very loving, kind, very helpful. When I was taking pictures, they enjoyed that, and so I'm going to be sending back a lot of pictures to people there. Rabir, after he did my little tour guide, I bought his daughter and son actually some clothes for a festival that was coming up, and through that process went to his home, and I have pictures with of his family there. They have a 12 by 12 dirt floor, no indoor plumbing. End up having this connecting experience with him, and he was asking me if I could buy him tarp, and I ended up doing that. And then later asking me to buy a new rickshaw because he said he could make a much better living for his family doing that. So after being totally uncomfortable at the front end, totally uncomfortable, and actually I told my teacher, Ganesh, I wouldn't mind coming home early, that I had the total opposite experience of immersing myself with the people. Ended up to have such fun experiences as that instead of the rickshaw where the guy's pedaling you and you're sitting back in that 2-seat thing, is I had him sit in the back and I was pedaling him. When we came back 3 or 4 days later, I had him sitting, Rabir sitting in the back along with this other rickshaw driver.
Good, Baba, or bad? Bhalo. Very nice.
It was just too fun. So after being uncomfortable, I had this experience of just extremely connected. There's a real richness, a spiritual richness to the Indians of what I experienced, of just some more contentment and happiness than what we experience, and looking at you in the eye and connecting more, just moment to moment during the process. Then on the Kriya Yoga side, I was very hugely blessed to travel with Ganesh, my teacher from Seattle, and Don Baba from New York City. That was a huge blessing just in general to get additional instruction for my teaching and then spend this trip with them. And also at the ashram, beautiful property, 60 acres, beautiful pond, beautiful mandir, which is a mandir is where Eastern tradition, I guess, or Indian tradition, where you take the body and you have a place for people to come and meditate and pray and be thankful for this person coming into their life. So beautiful mandir where most of the Kriya Yoga program was conducted, and marble and very grand place for Baba's body to be. And the connection with the Kriya Yoga, Kriya vans is what we call people practicing Kriya from around the world that some I've met in the past, some I just met for the first time, which of course is any legitimate spiritual practice for people together is a beautiful thing. And the program was very grand. There's probably feeding 500 to 1,000 people a day. There was probably 300 to 500 people there at the actual event. Had a grand experience of buying some paintings from a lady. It was her first time to exhibit paintings, and Prativa is her name. And her husband died of cancer a couple years ago after an 8-year struggle with cancer. She always enjoyed painting. I think they're spectacular paintings. I have some pictures of those. To experiences even with her family, which was very grand in general. So the program was very nice in the sense of connecting more deeply with my teachers and connecting with other Kriya people from around the world and the Indian Kriya vans and from our taxi driver Bhaskar, which I do have a picture of. Bhaskar was a character, very kind and helpful, and actually acted as a little tour guide. So connecting both there in India, just hugely blessed in thinking about that Baba spent 40 to 50 years of his life in Puri. It's where he achieved the ultimate state of enlightenment with the Kriya Yoga path, which is called Nirvikalpa Samadhi, which means the pulseless, breathless, deathless state. So that's got a little bit of me in it, I guess, some Kriya in it. To me, I thought this was more like just the India trip.